So you may know how to use Desmos on the SAT, but most of my students do not know when to use it and when it's going to be the most efficient use of their time. So this video is an excerpt of a video from our Desmos hacking course, and we will link it down below, but I hope you enjoy, and please be sure to hit that subscribe button. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is actually applying those Desmos principles of when it makes sense to do this on a recent practice test. I am logged into Blue Book. I'm choosing SAT Practice Test 11. And what I'm going to do is I am going to be showing you when it makes the most sense to actually use Desmos and these tools, because I have learned that students really struggle of when it makes sense and when it does not. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So a lot of students don't know that you don't have to do the entire practice test. If I'm focusing on one area, I'm just going to skip. So what I'm doing is I'm skipping to the math now. Okay, so there's going to be certain problems that, yes, are really good to use with Desmos, and then there's certain ones that don't make sense at all. This number one is something that I would say it doesn't make sense at all. And how you know this is because if you can, and most of y'all can solve this in your head, then you move. I'm going to move on. I'm not going to solve all these today, but this is one I wouldn't use Desmos with just because it would take too long. So number two, you have k of x equals x squared plus 110, where k of x, where x is equal to 2. This problem, most students can solve in their head, so same principle. I would move on with this one. Now, of course, if you wanted to type into your calculator, that's fine too. Okay, so this is actually my first one I would consider using Desmos on. Can I do it pretty fast in my calculator? Yes, but I want to show you this cool hack. So it's saying, what is the mean time in minutes for Robert to complete a task of this project? So all you have to do on this one, and you'll see me pop up Desmos, and it's really handy. So mean, median, and mode, and standard deviation, you can type in literally the word, and it gives you the option to do it in Desmos. So you would go 5, 2, 15, 9, 9, and then it calculates it, and the answer is 8, which is pretty convenient. Some people can do it faster on your calculator. That's kind of a you call. This one right here is a hand solve, and it's actually a little bit of word problems. I would not use Desmos in this one. I have, but it's not super helpful. Okay, so when it's asking about like exponential versus linear functions, this is just like pretty much a vocab. And if you don't know, here's a little tip. Exponential are always curved and linear are always a flat line. This is another one. If you could solve it in your head or just do it on paper, it's so much better. Triangles, hands down, are paper problems. There is some YouTubers out there that are like, hey, I can make triangles in Desmos. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. It would take forever. This one right here is a really good formula to know, but it is not a Desmos formula. But here's a little sneak peek of something that you absolutely should know while I'm looking at it, is whenever you see these formulas, all you have to know is how to set it up. And it's really easy once you figure it out. Always the front number is going to be the starting value. And then the inside number, if it is greater than 1, it's increasing. And then if it's less than 1, it's decreasing. A lot of students have forgotten this formula. The SAT is kind of obsessed with it for some odd reason. Okay, whenever you're solving for a letter, this should be obvious, but this is a hand one. Okay, so when it's talking about parallel and perpendicular lines, yes, you can verify in Desmos, but you can also get it wrong. The best thing to do is know that a parallel line has the same slope. Anything with square stuff, that is not Desmos. Avoid that, please. Okay, these are pretty much free ones that you can do with Desmos, and this is really simple. And I was showing this in a class actually like 2 days ago, and we worked through this, and they're like, oh, that was way easier than I thought, and that's correct. So it says, which quadratic equation has one distinct real solution? People panic because they're like, real solution, what is that? All it means is it's not a dang imaginary number. So here's what you're looking for. You are just looking for how many times it intersects the x-axis. So if you look at the first one on A, it's intersecting once. Let's go ahead and type in B. And then that one doesn't pop at all, so there's not one. And then I'll show you another wrong one so that you get the hang of it. And then that has two intersections. So the only one that has one, and D also is incorrect, is going to be A. They really like these questions. I've seen at least 2 per test. Okay, this one right here is really just writing a formula. This one's not going to be helpful with Desmos. Okay, this is like my favorite one to do lately. It's a fun little Desmos trick. Is we are going to make a y equals mx plus b, or just a line with the points, and you don't even have to put in all the points. So whenever I see charts like this and I see y equals mx plus b, I'm like Desmos. So I click plus table, and then I go 1, tab 32, tab 2, 28. And since I'm feeling nice and lazy, I'm not putting in all the points because it doesn't matter. So here's my line, and it's asking my b, which is 36, and then I'm done. It's way faster than that. This stuff right here is just a word problem that you just have to solve out. Sorry, guys. Okay, so this is another way that you can use Desmos, is when you're trying to find the slope, very similar to what we were just doing. I have had students be able to answer this and guess and have no problem on this one, but I also have students who will mix up the axes. Sometimes it'll be at a very different pace. So sometimes I will see the x be in quantities of hundreds and y be 1, 2, 3, 4. So it is always better to check. So remember, when you're checking slope of best fit lines, you are looking at the line, not the random dots. So then you go plus table, just like the last problem. And then you just have to choose 2 points. So I'm going to go 0 and 3. It looks like 3.1. Actually, yeah, 3.2. You don't have to go crazy exact. And then the next one would be 3. And it looks like 5 is the y. And what I can see is 0.6. Like I said, that might be a problem you don't need Desmos for, but it's helpful to validate, especially in Module 1. You want to get as many or as close to perfect as possible. Okay, so whenever you are trying to see points on a line, and then this one is not a y equals mx plus b, so we're not going to use that tool. But we are looking for 3 values of x and their corresponding values, which one defines f of x. So all you have to do is you have to figure out which points are on the line. Now, some people will be able to eyeball it, but I'm going to pretend that we can't, just so you get the concept. So all you have to do is you type in a equals x minus 24, x minus 30, plus 4. So I have my line there, and now I'm going to go ahead and drop my points. So we go 24 comma negative 8. Okay, you see how that black dot is floating? That is wrong. So we're going to go ahead and type in the next one. So those stay the same in the middle. Actually, let's just go ahead and type it here. We'll type in B. Normally I try to edit it, but I accidentally deleted it. And on a side note, I don't know if I mentioned this on the other video, please get a mouse before you do Desmos. It helps a ton. So for B, it looks like 1 point's there. We'll go ahead and test the others. And then that one's there. And then let's test the third. Cool. And so that one is correct. So we would choose B and we would move on. So you can put circles in Desmos. This is not a good use of it because this is just testing the circle formula, which is that x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. But just in case you have to visualize the circle at some point, you can type this in without the k. I'll show you just in case. But this one is like a kind of a solve by hand one. And we'll just go 81 and not do the k. So you can visualize a circle if need be. Okay, this one with the graph right here, this one, Desmos will not help you. That one's actually a really annoying problem. Okay, so anything with SOHCAHTOA, you don't want to use Desmos. This one, okay, so this is something really, really good to notate. This is one you will want to use Desmos. I have tested this through and through. I've done this with students. I've tried it with Desmos versus by hand. Technically you can, but this is one I actually wouldn't. And this is a formula, especially if you were going for a high score, I would memorize by test day because this one is not on the test. and this is going to be your vertex formula. So please know this formula for test day. I'm going to tell you this one, you can do this later, but it is so much better to solve it by hand, but it's very tempting to do in Desmos. And then this one is another one of how many distinct real solutions does this equation have? And then here you would choose how many intersections you saw. So what I've kind of talked about is dropping points is always helpful in Desmos. Anything in the other video as well that is like the one before this is helpful. But in general, you need to make sure that graphs are in Desmos, anything with two intersections, anything with inequalities, absolute values, but please avoid putting geometry in Desmos unless it's a... So if you want the full length video and a lot more Desmo hacks with actually a printable application, go ahead and check out our mini course. It is linked below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to be notified for more SAT and ACT videos.